Hello, everyone, and Madayaw! Shalom. Now, I've been to two concerts yesterday, not kidding. It was quite hectic, and then after that, we had a writer's party online. Yeah, very, very hectic. Let me just tell you guys, because this is a Christmas story, or I'm gonna impart some Christmas knowledge here. All right. So yesterday we left at 8 because we were going to Buddha for lunch. Yes, it was fundraising lunch for a particular school. It's actually a good school, a small school. I like it. Seven kids to a classroom, so not much. I asked them how many people in school, just about 100 plus from K all the way to 12. Yeah. Uh, there were some kids from school who played violin very well at a very young age. It it was great. Nice place. They really set up the whole place. Buddha is nice because it's cold there. Food wise, disappointing, but that's not their fault. It's possibly the restaurant. I don't know. Anyways, then in the evening or right about mid afternoon, we had to like rush home. Um, Bought some plants and vegetables on the way down. Anyways, freshened up because in the evening, the Himig singers were singing in mom's church. So mom had a ticket, two tickets, so we went. And I was really surprised because they were singing in Latin. I thought they were just going to sing the usual um, Christmas songs. They did. They sang Christmas songs, but only towards the end, and they had the audience sing along with them. But for the first part and the half of the second part, they were singing Latin, which I really love because I really like listening to Latin choir and Gregorian chants. There's just something heavenly in listening to it. And mom's like, Ma, it's in heaven. We will listen to this all the time. And I said, yes, yes, very much, except they won't be singing in Latin. Maybe Hebrew, but not Latin. Or maybe there's a secret language of the angels. Whatever it is, the the music itself, because a large chunk of it was Handel, and Handel is one of the composers that I like. Anyway, so before that, um, the pastor of their church, of course, had to have what's this prayer with a brief little lecture, and then that was like I don't know if that was appropriate, but that was a church, so I suppose it was appropriate. And then, of course, when we're listening to the traditional Christmas carol, that is when I began to wait a minute. People are so indoctrinated with what they want to think of Christmas. And when did all these things start anyway? And then, of course, there are a lot of posts on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube that people want to say that Christmas is not pagan. Okay, so let's unpaganize Christmas. I already made a video on Santa Claus, on the real Saint Nicholas, who's not the jolly fat red guy, or sorry, fat man, white man, dressed up in a red suit. No, no, no. He's a real saint. He's a real saint. He performed miracles, but he was right around like 200, 300 AD, and he is a bishop of the Christian church. So that time the Christian church did not split yet. So he was a bishop of the Christian church. He was jailed, some say even tortured, because of his love for Jesus. And anyway, so he was adopted into Christmas right around the 1930s in the Americas, but prior to that in Europe he was already adopted there long before, maybe a century or two before, but he had a different lore to it. I think in Europe, especially in the Scandinavian countries, he walks around the Yule tide with Krampus. Now let's talk about the Yuletide, because the Yuletide is supposed to be a scary time of the year, like Halloween scary time of the year, such that it was the time because December 25 was when the veil of the spiritual and the natural world was thinnest. That was the Yuletide season. And things that go bump in the night can cross over. So it was a pretty scary time. It was winter, winter solstice was upon you. It was the longest day of the year. Sorry, shortest day of the year, longest day of the night, longest night of the year. So, anyways, it is it is a pretty scary time when people are like, "Oh, the Yuletide greeting." Please don't. It's scary, and I've known about the Yuletide thing like long before, like college time when I was still in college, because my sisters and I were always like making up creepy stories in my sister's bedroom, because the Yule hunt and all that, and she wanted to make a story about the Yule hunt. I'm like, why? I want Christmas to be like nice and good and stuff and gift giving, and you're gonna give me nightmares. And she's like, but that's the Yuletide season, and there are things associated with the Yuletide, like those Yule, well, our Advent calendar and our Advent candles came from that. So those are pagan traditions. Um, December 25 is pagan because Jesus wasn't born during Christmas or winter time. It was not that time. Now here's another thing that I want to, I guess, debunk, if you want to say that term, because this one is still being propagated by pastors and priests, that Jesus was attended by the lowliest shepherd because he was a poor person. No, no. Joseph ain't poor. Joseph was from the tribe of Judah. He was not poor. He was a carpenter. That does not mean carpenter like what we perceive carpenter now. He might have been the type like a contractor, or, as many would surmise, he was actually an artisan. He made furniture. He's that type of carpenter. We don't distinguish furniture maker from someone who makes houses, so we all just lump them together in a term carpenter. But please, he is not poor. And the lowly shepherds who attended Jesus' birth, that was a symbolic thing. They were not lowly shepherds because shepherds were not allowed within the bounds of the city. They were in Bethlehem. It is a very sacred city because those shepherds were Levitical shepherds. They had to be in Jesus' birth. The angels had to tell them, yo, get up, get to that house. You need to be there for this birth. Because they were Levitical shepherds, they were supposed to prepare the Passover lambs. And Jesus is the Passover lamb. Those are not lowly shepherds. Those were priestly shepherds. They knew about Jesus. So when Jesus started to preach, they knew about it. And of course, some people don't want to accept that. But there were already a lot of signs. And Jesus ain't poor. Remember those three kings. Well, we don't know if there's three. But those guys gave him a lot of money. They gave him a lot of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Even if Mary already used up the frankincense and myrrh or sold them, those were worth a lot of money. Okay? And the gold was a lot. It was a tribute to a king. Whatever they would be giving to Solomon, they were giving to Jesus at the time of that birth. That's not peanuts. They used it, they used it to run to Egypt. Maybe they lived lavishly. I don't think they'll finish that up. Anyways, so those are some of the myths that I wanted to debunk. And anyways, if you want to learn what are the pagan symbols that we've incorporated into Christmas, I will make another separate video because that's going to take some time. And yes, a lot of them we have been incorporating in our commercial sense now. And a lot of them, sadly, is still in the Catholic faith. Not to say the Christian faith or the Protestant faith isn't injecting that in. I see them. see them.